Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 575 of Russian war with Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Alexey Arestovych, and in this format with Nikolai Feldman and Yuri Romanenko. Usual thanks go to our supporters. Thank you, Klaus Preditis, for sticking with us for that long and supporting being our member. And of course, thanks to Bill for your super thanks. You guys are awesome. Okay, with this, let's go dive into day 575. Today, the main point of conversation is that prolonged war requires different strategies, not only on the battlefield, but also in the civil society. And with that, enjoy. Hi everybody, this is Project Alpha. My name is Nikolai Feldman. Greetings to everybody who is with us. And it is War Diary with Alexey Arestovych. We're starting to stream on his channel, on Yuri Romanenko's channel, and on Alpha Media. Yuri is finally with us in our studio. Alexey is still traveling, but he is in a place with, I hope, good connection. Good evening. Yes, good evening, everybody. Well, we're starting that stream, so please, at the beginning, do not forget to click the like button. And we have a lot of news to bring today to your attention. Let's start with the first one, pure military story, night special operation in Crimea. Unprecedented by scale, I think. Am I right, Alexei? Well, what's happening during the last couple of weeks in Crimea basically indicates the qualitative jump in our capabilities of hitting Russian military there. This is done not only to show off, and because we just want to do that. Of course, we do want to do that, but it is the fact is that Crimea is an operational base for the southern front, and it has a lot of logistic targets that are super valid for us to attack. An interesting point that we, a couple days ago, destroyed a backup command outpost for the Black Sea. We destroyed the whole place, the whole locale, with the shift of the officers who were there. I'm not going to say if there was a highest level admiral among the officers who died there, but we'll learn more. But I think this is a great operation for which some people in our military need to be getting awards. This is basically a place where they manage where to send those missiles that fly to us from the Black Sea, including those ship missiles like Onyx and the rest. Also, regarding the air defense systems, Russia this night has shot a ton of munitions trying to shoot down our attacking craft, and I think we oversaturated the capability of their defense. They finally completely failed to do anything. And I think Crimea has finally stopped being a relatively safe place for their troops. It is not anymore, and it is a huge peninsula with 5 airfields, a lot of warehouses, control and command outposts. One can actually pose the question, who controls airspace over Crimea? Russia is not capable of doing anything there. It means we will continue hitting them, and it will keep going on until we reach our goals. All that needs to be destroyed. Novorossiysk is another story, but we can reach even there too. So if they get there, we can reach them there as well. Well, they should have thought better when they started this war, right? This is a new level of capabilities. We've been accumulating them for a while, and now they've been aggregating slowly, and now they're manifesting very rapidly. So in the last couple of days, there was also a destruction of a vessel, of a naval ship that went out to fight with drones and was actually hit by one of the drones and was towed back to the port. And also Chkalov airfield, where the airplane of the Judgment Day is based, a very important plane for the top-level command of Russia, and we damaged 2 helicopters and that plane. and that was in Moscow region. Right, but Moscow is not by our missiles or anything that flies, right? It is, as they write, some partisans. Right, Ural partisans, as I like to say, the ones who are not indifferent to Kremlin, they worked on that target. Listen, what's interesting about that Chkalov airfield, it caused a lot of ruckus in Russian military circles because it is an asset of the highest level of command. How did they manage? This is a very important object, not too far from the capital. It has such patchy defense. Is everybody out in Ukraine fighting? Nikolai, tell me, what is not riddled with holes in Russia? I don't know, I'm not too big of an expert in Russia. Everything is riddled with holes, is patchy, you can buy and sell anything. And it is like that, first of all, due to Russian habits of not fulfilling tasks too seriously. And second, they never really expected to be attacked there. There was like a daisical approach to the whole war internally. What are the systems that protect plane on the airfield? In all of the Eastern Europe, caponniers exist. And that is the place where initially Soviet Union was expecting NATO to strike first, so they built those protections. Sorry, there is a technical break here. I think Alexey will reconnect now. Do not leave us. We'll bring it back. And Alexey will bring his eternal light that you're waiting, right? Right. Just stick with us for now. A good time to click the like button, subscribe if you have not done that yet. And if you want to support us, there are ways to do that as well. You can help the stream to see new eyeballs. Tomorrow we'll have another stream with the Detsuk. Interesting, complex topics we'll touch upon. And yeah, I'm using this pause to give some announcement. Okay, is Alexey back? Let's answer some questions while he's still connecting. Somebody asked us in the chat, just a sec, about Armenia. We did plan to talk about Armenia when Alexey gets back. It's okay, I'll drop a couple answers here, he can elaborate further. Why does a part of Ukrainian society supports Armenia in this situation? Well, first of all, because there are a lot of Armenians living in Ukraine. Second is that Armenia is now turning towards West, once that Russia has dumped it, and many people look at it as the change of geopolitical course. Oh, Alexey is back with us, okay. Yeah, enemies were finding ways to disconnect my internet. Okay, so they're just not ready in Russia for the hits on their territory, and now they're eating the fruit of their earlier actions. It seems like they were not ready for anything. Yeah, no, they were only prepared for the parade in Kiev, and that's the level of governmental politics and their approach to the biggest war since 1945. They were completely not ready for that. All right, next point. Average life expectancy of Russian conscript on the front in Ukraine is about 4 months. This is what calculated by volunteers according to the data that shows up in the media and necrologs and data of when people were conscripted and were sent to Ukraine. Important stories and conflict intelligence team calculated this information that during the first month that conscripts were sent to the front, as a result, during the first month of conscripts fighting on the front, 6.8% at least perished. After that, situation did not get better. Every fifth could not live longer than 2 months, and more than a half of them left or parted with their lives in the first 4.5 months. With that, the number of mobilized decreased by the 11 months since the first one started to show up. And that could be also due to the fact that they started filtering what is being published in regional media and just filtering the necrologs that are being published in the open field. So, is there any prognostication here we can talk about? I think Russian Ministry of Labor did the prognosis for us already. They ordered 230,000 certificates for victims, for casualties of this war. And these are not for wounded, these are for deceased in Russia. So they probably analyzed statistics of the previous experience of mobilization. So 4.5 months, that's actually very lucky. This is probably the second wave that at least had some preparations. And they spent 2 to 3 months in the training fields. And the first group, the 100,000 of those, were thrown to the front immediately. They had a record, I think, 5 days or 3 days, because between the moment when he arrived to the front and was captured by Ukraine. So I think this is more of an average statistics, 4.5 months. Many of them lived much shorter. Yura, do you have anything here? Let's switch to Zaluzhny case, because there are a lot of people asking here, and there is an uproar in the chat. Okay, let me bring a brief about that. BBC made a publication that there is a criminal prosecution case for a year and a half already in work, and gave some names of generals that are part of that investigation, and is posting a question if Zaluzhny is part of that investigation, is also being interrogated as a result of it. And I think we are at the brink of a Watergate scandal. We can call it Southgate, I guess. And Zaluzhny, as a person who has a lot of support from the whole society and the only figure that doesn't have any controversy around it, that is being sympathized by all Ukrainians, it may turn out that he has been criminally investigated for a year and a half already. So there are a lot of interesting angles here to look at. And BBC wrote the topic of this investigation is poor defense of the South, and possible charges all the way up to treason are being weighted against the defendants. And also lack of professionalism that caused Ukraine to lose southern territories at the beginning of war. According to this article, generals are going to interrogations and the proceedings are underway. So, two main questions. Who started that and when was it started? And I think our congressman could send this request and find out this information. And I think the investigation officer will not be hiding that data. So I think everybody will understand where was that wind blowing from, and society will need to react to that data when it surfaces up. And I think that material cannot be just shoved under the carpet. This is not the level that you can try to hide. And I don't know if that explosion will happen in the society now, or will it be somewhat taken out. They try to slow walk it. We'll see. But there are a lot of questions that are being looked at. And of course, the problem with the South, the way it was defended as a society, of course, we are interested in what things happened there. And the question for society, are we doing it during the war or after the war? But the person who started that criminal case against Zaluzhny and some of his generals, he made everything to make sure that this information would be leaked to society during the war. And I'm sure that Zaluzhny did everything that it would not be out in the public field. He's not the person who is talking publicly about a lot of things. He is really concentrated on his work. But now it is, and it's impossible to mute it now. And these are the things that can change situation internally in the society rather drastically. I'm not sure what that scandal will go, in which direction exactly, but this is a huge scandal in all capitals. And I think the whole society and journalists and media are very interested to get answers what happened when and why. So if Ukrainian leadership wants to maintain some control over that situation, they need to play into the future of that situation. They need to be before it. They do not need to be responding to issues that surface up. They need to be leading and guiding it and indicating the deficiencies and good discoveries. In a normal country, if we want to route it properly, we want to create a parliament commission to keep it in the light and also make sure that investigation is a quality one. And if we can publish something, we should be publishing these things. Especially since we're still in the active phase of war, so we need to probably filter what the details that need to go out. But once again, we need to be public and open about that investigation. Army has a lot of questions too about how political leadership is helping or not helping it to fight this war. Army is the organization that is fighting this war on its shoulders, and it is a big question how politicians are helping or not. Of course, not everybody is fluffy and nice in the army. Of course, the commissars may do certain things in the regions during conscription activities and all, but what is the share of responsibility? And in this case, it's regarding the South. Look, before that, there was a suicide of the head of Kherson region. Then there was a general who came out, Chkalov, who published a long article saying, how can I protect the whole South with 1,300 people at the beginning of war? And I think now these are indicators of the pressure building inside that case, that now it's seeping out through the cracks. They failed to shove it under the carpet. They failed to investigate it later after the war. And BBC material is really ripping the lid off that prosecution case. I think it has a very explosive potential, and I think it will be working for quite a while in our society. I think we're on the verge of a big event in our society, in good sense of this word, I think. And if we manage to create a right commission and keep it in the open, we can learn a lot of good lessons out of this. I think that's the best what we can do, to not let it flow by itself and to actually pay more attention, to understand what exactly happened, and to continue doing that while informing the society to a degree that we can. And since we started doing it, we didn't wait till the end of the war, we need to be very professional in handling this case. But I'm concerned that our government, our leadership will fail to do it properly. I'm looking at the scandal with Poland. I think their qualification is subpar to carry it out properly. Right, I wanted to switch here to the scandal with Poland. There are a lot of people internally in Ukraine that are talking about, look, there is some result. At the end, we also sent documents to World Trade Organization. We got some support from Euro Commission. What result are you talking about, Nikolai? Well, no, we got finally a way to sell grain and everything is open again. No, I don't think it's a result. It's like in that joke about two guys who were riding in the desert and making bets on each other, and at the end they end up having eaten some shit, having done some inappropriate sexual contact, and have remained with their own money. So, yeah, I think the price we paid was a bad price for that. We created an issue with our immediate allies and neighbors. And to put our position and government interests dependent to the interest of several grain traders, this is not a good precedent. This is something that's very concerning, and I think I can qualify that as really treasonous activity. When you attack the routes of supplies and attack our allies during the war times for some pesky monetary interests, and you can accuse Poles and others in their own interests, etc., that many people are here publishing in the media sphere in Ukraine that Poland is not exactly clean in this case too. But imagine the situation when we are absolutely perfect and it was Poland's mistake. Still, do we need to bring it out in the public as a scandal with NATO and with Poland? Or should we maybe perhaps talk first and try to find a solution peacefully, amicably? Because look, when the heat was on after this initial case and when we started sending documents out and Poland took their active position, once the whole thing exploded, they actually met and figured everything out, right? But did they need to spoil their relations first? And after that, yeah, we talked to Slovakia, to Hungary, and to others. Why did we have to bring it up? Why did we have to go into this conflict with our immediate neighbors? Because the whole conflict actually showed that the only countries we can really rely upon are our immediate neighbors who understand whom are we fighting with and what are we fighting for. And instead of keeping our peace with them, we are throwing shit at each other here. And we're not just doing that in any time, but also in the pre-election campaign time in Poland, for example, right? And Slovakia also has their elections looming. So all that throws additional water to the mill of pro-Putin powers there. Who needed that? Why did we do that? There was another article today published in The Economist, a very stern article in a fashion that it talks about Ukraine, that Ukraine needs to concentrate less on the future post-war, but needs to pay more attention to how they handle current war. Of course, Ukrainian military can still achieve certain successes in the south, but it would be stupid to rely just on that and hope on that. Ukraine needs to be building its own economic strength and processes. Ukraine and Western allies understand that this war may be a long-lasting one that will tap into all kind of resources of the country, but Ukraine is failing to understand how to reorganize its economy in line of continuous war with Russia. And how can Ukraine flourish and find ways for Ukraine to survive despite that ongoing war? And it's not just about repairs of equipment, it's also about the branches of economy that need to maintain their profitability. And one more quote, that Ukraine will not be able to flourish if Russia will continue destroying its infrastructure as it was doing during the last 18 months. Kiev is a lively city only because it has a good protection from aerial attacks, and Ukraine needs the same protection throughout for other towns and cities. And speaking of, F-16s and more air defense systems need to be provided to Ukraine in order for them to maintain long-term defense and long-term success. And it is time to concentrate on that already. Ukraine economy needs to switch from being completely dependent on foreign powers and need to maintain itself. So basically an Israeli variant, right? Right. Look, what they're talking about here is not just military changes, it's also changing of our economy, changing the way we do things here and administer things in Ukraine. We've been fighting for a year and a half and we're still not shifting, not changing anything. It doesn't mean that we need to implement Stalin way of management in Soviet Union in 1941 to 1945, where everybody were looking at everybody. There was no entertainment. People were looking for spies and all. No, it is a war of 21st century. Shops and restaurants need to be open. It actually helps people to keep sanity, but you need to take certain measures. They're absolutely needed. And where are they? Where are new ways to conduct our economy? We only see these conflicts popping up with our neighbors from time to time. We see some inadequate decisions in economy, to say the least. And let's pronounce the last name of Getmantsev again here, because that's where. And that speech Taliban, as we're calling it internally in Ukraine, where people keep bickering and attacking those who do not speak Ukrainian. And this is, first of all, every war is a war of ideas. People will not be coming back to the country where they're being chased by commissars and where some parts of society will be attacking them for whatever they say or post, however they do that. I want to quote Karl Marx here, actually. The main productive force is human. The more he is provided with, the more system works for him, the more effective the system becomes and the more productive he is. And it is most effective then anywhere between agriculture, production, industrial manufacturing, and even battlefield. So if our government would be taking care of the Russian missiles, making sure that they do not hit our civilians, making sure that the priority of our system is to care about not only soldiers on the battlefield, but also civilians in the back. When somebody is telling us that a little Soviet army cannot win over a big Soviet army, this is not true. We're not exactly a Soviet army here. We are changing. Our army is different. But it will be a very difficult fight if the society doesn't stop being Soviet or post-Soviet. And what it means is that we start to value person's rights. A person needs to be a subject of that victory. He needs to have rights equal to the rights in the best countries of the West. And we're lagging behind on that. There are a lot of scandals in this aspect. That often happens when you don't make right decisions on time. It usually turns out to be a lot of public scandals later. Those people who made mistakes, made wrong decisions, eventually will lead to big conflicts. Russia actually made a right decision early on in this war, and they started to rebuild their economy to match the demands of war. We have not done that fast, and we're slacking behind now. And it is a somewhat ambivalent flow of decisions that one can see coming from the government in Ukraine. And the question the West is posting now, when will you become serious? When will you start making good decisions? What is Economist talking about? Change the way you administer things, change your economy. Make sure you are ready for a prolonged war, even if it will be complete and done with in a year or half a year from now. So that's a big question. Perhaps the chain of public scandals will make our government to start working on the right decision. So one more angle I want to touch here, Alexey, about the scandal. There is an opinion in Ukraine that the scandal brings up a question that we as a country that wants to join European Union is not really understanding the main principles how European Union members work. What are our rights and our responsibilities to our neighbors? Because situation they are facing too, our allies are facing too, they are not also responsible for that. They are not. They are sort of effects of that war. And they did not plan for having a lot of refugees or these altered economic flows of goods and services. Well, look, so given that we have our immediate neighbors providing us military and economic services, we have basic trust already built between us. So why not to use that basic trust to solve all the problems internally without letting it blow up in your face? Western politics is very tightly related to the public opinions. Big scandals, they actually do affect the public opinion on things. Annalena Baerbock, I think she's a Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, actually made a statement that the right to vote in the United Nations should not be taken away from Russia. Why did she make that statement? We'll dive into that later, but Russia is essentially an aggressor, right, who is killing people. It is actually is illegally in United Nations. They inherited the right of USSR without actually going through the proper documented routes. We have a special group that is working on that continuously. We need to finish that deal, that interrogation in that case with the United Nations, because Russia got the Soviet Union rights illegally, and somehow they're being kept at the core of United Nations. They still have the right, the veto power. They are kept in the Security Council. What is that? I think that part of the public opinion that was formed in Germany by Russian propaganda and public scandals definitely affected her statement. So here's my question. Why are we causing these scandals when we could actually negotiate privately? And now we're peddling, for the most part, the main limelight isn't a problem with Poland, but there is also Hungary, there's also Slovakia, there is Romania. Slovaks are giving us artillery systems, other friends are training our F-16 pilots. Why did we fail to reach a resolution in private? Why did we need to bring that scandal out to the public? What for? Is it a class of politics? Is it our level? I think the answer is obvious here. Okay, Ramstein happened recently. Our new Minister of Defense, Umerov, took part in it. How can we gauge the results of that Ramstein? I think it's very standard. We got the 8 packages, the ones that were pre-agreed at the previous Ramsteins, so everything is following the tracks there. The main thing for us is not to lose what we already have achieved with Ramstein, and I don't see any specific achievements by Umerov yet. He is just a new person coming in power. I think it was all due to the previous Minister of Defense. And despite of all the scandals, one can say that the packages are still coming, right? Because in the West, they still divide where there is inadequacy and where there is a dire need. And I think they understand the joint interest that we have here, even though we had Poland saying that they will stop providing military aid flow through their country. But I think it was more a figure of speech, and I think we'll reach the agreement back to put everything in place. I'm always saying, and I'll often get questions, what is needed for Ukraine to continue to win this war? My main point here is at least the same level of support. Do not diminish it. It would be better if you could increase it, but at least the same. And I think they're very adequate allies in this regard, even though internally they have a lot of people who are bringing up a ton of rhetoric, a ton of controversy, and trying to push their leaders to also try to negotiate with Putin. All right. So there was an end of Karabakh, or something close to that, right? In the other news, that gray zone that existed between Armenia and Azerbaijan for about 30 years was finally gone in the last couple days. And Moscow was always playing their gray schemas there. And it seems that Azerbaijan basically solved that issue by using military force against Russian so-called peacekeepers who were positioned there. There were 4 casualties, and one of them was second in command of the biggest fleet of nuclear submarines in Russia, after which Azerbaijan leader Aliyev actually made a personal call to Putin and apologized for that casualty. And it seems that Kremlin just swallowed it and withdrew back from that gray zone. No, I don't think Nikolai, the Kremlin withdrew. I think Kremlin was actually part of that deal. Kremlin is a traitor to Armenia. When Karabakh clan has won the first war and captured the power flows in Armenia, Russia aided that country to become a rather corrupt entity that was importing a lot of drugs, and there was a lot of criminal dealings through Karabakh. And then all of a sudden, Pashinyan wins the election, right? It's their version of flower revolution in Armenia. He takes a position that's completely opposing the position of Kremlin. And he understands that he depends upon the neighbors, that they don't even have direct border with Russia. And Armenia will not be able to survive without having good relations with their neighbors. A simple question, that oil pipe that went Baku, Tbilisi, Ceyhan, it would be much easier and simpler to route it through Armenia. And Azerbaijan and Turkey actually suggested Armenia to host it. But Karabakh clan refused. They wanted to enjoy their support of Russia, by Russia, and to enjoy their gray schemes of making money. Then Azerbaijans did what I think will enter in the books of history. They did a colossal work to reform their society and their military and everything. We should be learning from them, actually, because they still have 127 schools in Baku. Russian-speaking schools in that city. They're very different languages. Azerbaijan language from the Turk group of languages and Russian, but they understood that if they completely expel the Russian-speaking part of society, they'll have issues. They had issues in Georgia when they started pushing the Russian-speaking people out at some point, and there were issues with enough cadre for engineering, for other services, well-trained professionals. So Azerbaijan saw that, and they managed to preserve the right structure in their country, despite of the military and other things that were happening there. Their relations with Turkey were not exactly good as well for a while. Not too many people know, but they actually had direct military conflict. And they changed. They changed a lot. They actually didn't just buy a lot of UAVs and destroy everything Russian that was in Karabakh. They were going for very specific military operations that were difficult. There were threats of additional strikes from Iran, etc. The whole story of a slow and difficult breakthrough. Everybody was saying that Azerbaijan will not be able to prevail. That's a difficult war in mountains, and they still managed to do it. And when Russian contingent arrived and said that, no, let's halt this war, despite your successes, we'll just put a pause here. And many people from Azerbaijan writing to me saying, hey, so why is that happening? And I tried to calm them down. At that time, I was reporting on that conflict. I was involved in the media sphere around this conflict. I was writing a lot about it. Where actually I was telling them, "Calm down, guys. There will be time. It's not time yet, but there will be time when you will take the territory back." Despite all the pressure and everything, look at them now. There are European Unions and France and the United Nations and United States mentioning them and having some questions, but they're still pursuing their interests. And they actually doing it rather elegantly. And their position would have been very different if they did not offer a peaceful solution to Armenia. They actually gave a key to Armenia to change their destiny. And here the key position, I think, to restore good relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, to make money together. And Pashinyan played a key role now when he initially made a lot of mistakes trying to toy with his Karabakh election and power groups. And one of the reasons for reigniting that war was his visit to that territory. He, this time, after a while, after his second elections, he basically decided to not interfere in that conflict. His opposition is now protesting in the capital, but he came out and said that CSTO and Russia failed to fulfill their duties, and they are traitors, treasonous to us, so we will not interfere in this war. And Karabakh clan is on their own. Russia basically, indeed, agreed with Turkey and Azerbaijan, so they would do whatever they want in that region. Russia abstained from participating. So, in essence, Pashinyan got to the area that he wanted to. He is now building independent Armenia, and Russia is finally turned on Armenia and is pissed off because what? Because of the corruption schemes of Karabakh clan and some corruption and money that they were flowing to Moscow. That's what they did. They basically are a traitor to Armenia. So when Zelensky is bringing an argument, if you want to make an agreement with Russia, look at Prigozhin's destiny. One can bring something else here. One can bring that, hey, look at the Armenia agreement. Armenia even joined CSTO, but when it came to a conflict, Russia just gave up on it. We did not discuss situation on the front. Perhaps let's go back to the map and take a look what's happening there. The situation on the front can be characterized in a few sentences, even without the map. Right now, it is the period when Russians counterattack, and we're pulling in our forces to continue our motion. For example, the protrusion near Rabotina and Verbovoye. On one hand, we're holding our positions, and on the other, we're grinding through the Russian resupplies they're throwing on the front. They actually dropped their best of their paratroopers, the 7th and 76th. They're all pretty much gone now. So now that they run out of steam, we will continue going and we'll have more interesting results soon. Same situation in Avdiivka, Klishchiivka, Kurdyumovka. Our troops have taken certain positions there. Andreevka, not Avdiivka, sorry. And we have taken certain positions there. We're holding, and Russia is wasting their forces in mindless counterattacks and attempts to recapture positions. And situation in Kupiansk is rather stale. It's heavy fighting, but there was no serious motion on both sides. And behind that, one can see a failure of Russian idea to make a motion in the north. So the fighting ensues throughout the whole front. It just during the last couple of days there was not much change really, so I don't think there's a need to bring the map up. All right, one more important piece of news that came from Russia. Mobilized at the autumn of last year are now being court-martialed for leaving their troops without permission, and since May of this year, the prosecution system is processing about 100 cases per week, and there are some publications about certain cases that became publicly known, but for the most part, about 60% of these prosecutions are related to the deserters who refused to participate in the war in Ukraine. Yeah, there are a lot of deserters, and they come to the second line, third line of defense first, and very often they're not even prepared for anything. They just have a meal and then being thrown into the grinder. And they see that they've been in the vehicle number 6 in the column, and while you were eating and having lunch, the ones who went further, the first 5 vehicles, they're already gone and dead. So people will start considering things and they will start deserting. We've seen a video recently, the fighters from 47th Brigade took prisoners some Russians, and there was a commander, a platoon commander, who was talking about his situation. He was saying that he had 18 fighters, but 5 of them actually deserted before getting into the fight. So this is a good indicator. Just like our drones and other video tools record, they can see quite a few Russians deserting from the battlefield. Even some of the best paratroopers actually fled when they tried to attack the Robotina protrusion from on the left flank, on the western flank. When they were shelled with cluster munitions, they were running. There was some good videos of them fleeing. Those videos we didn't see them a year ago. Now they're more and more showing up, how Russian troops are fleeing from the battlefield. And as the more we fight, the more this break will be visible. There's that disconnect between their war fighting and their actual mood to fight this war. Because for a person to get up from the trench under the bullets or munitions, you need to know what you're doing that for. You need to know what you're dying for. Because when they're coming to the front from somewhere deep in Russia for those 200,000 rubles that they're promised, they understand that they likely going to jump from the low level of society to some mid-level, right, to become middle class with this money. But when they come here, they understand the price they need to pay. And then they understand that they don't need this 200,000. And all the prisoners of war that we get, their main message is everything is so very different from what we were told. So of course they will be running. Because crushing with reality where you need to die in the next 24 hours, it sobers up people even much stronger than a medium-grade Russian fighter. All right, gentlemen, we've been live for over 45 minutes. I think we can stop at this. And we ask everybody to not forget to click the like button and subscribe if you have not done that yet. And leave your comments, leave your thoughts in the commentary section. And I think we'll see you on Saturday, right? All right. Till Saturday then.